Vasudeva. Hari Om. Sem no mitrasyam varunaha sem no bhavatvaryama sem na indro brahaspatihi sem no vishnurukramah namo brahmane namaste vayo tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami ratam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pratyapāschātya deshanam samanvaya vidhayakam shantam saumya gunopetam krishnam vande jagadgurum. Om asmat gurubhyo namaha. Welcome to all our brothers and sisters. So, we are here after a gap of 13 days once again. So, we are still under the study of aphorism 19, because in this aphorism, even though the aphorism appears very short, but it has an intense depth in it, which we have to apply with so many observations in our daily life, with our own transactions, and also with the people around us. So, unless we correlate them, all these, with all those observations and examples, we cannot appreciate completely the meaning of this aphorism. Because this is an approach to get into the experience of the real vairagya or non-attachment. Because without completely being familiarized with the real type of non-attachment, we cannot attain, or we cannot get at the required step, which is chitta-vritti nirodha, suspension of the behavior of the mind, is possible only by the application of the two tools or instruments which we have been discussing rather studying than discussing, and trying to apply them. Without application, only discussion or study without application is of no use. So we have to try to apply at every step in our daily life. So abhyasa or repetition of the effort, we have repeatedly studied it with so many examples given by our master. And then we have started the study of the second of these tools, which is Vairagya. Vairagya or non-attachment. So much had been explained about this Vairagya in so many texts of yoga and all this, but what is Vairagya in the real sense, that is being explained by Patanjali through his aphorisms. So this first part of, in the beginning we had a short introduction about the structure of the book of Patanjali. It is given in 4 padas, 4 parts, which are called 4 padas. So we are in the first pada, which is called Samadhi pada. So it is our effort to get at the suspension of the behavior of the mind. So for that, Vairagya is very important step which we cannot avoid at all. So Vairagya, we have to more and more, we have to study about this, because there are many misconceptions about Vairagya or non-attachment. So therefore now we have gone some deeper into this study of this Vairagya. So far we have studied 2 types of Vairagyas mentioned. One is Samprajñata, all conscious state of Vairagya. And that is, the second is Asamprajñata, which is the real Vairagya. So now we have entered into the 19th aphorism, in which there are 3 terms technically given in this aphorism, which we have been studying, which continues now. So one is Bhava Prachaya. Bhava Prachaya means the basis to take birth. What is the basis to take birth, to attain a body, taking birth? We know we are born, that is why we are here, working with each other, talking with each other, working with each other. We are here because of this. So what is the basis for anyone to take a birth, an incarnation, a birth? Because it is not by chance. Our taking a body, our attaining a body is not merely by chance, which is for the modern minds, untrained minds, that means those who have not entered into the yogic path, for such persons, for such minds, attaining a birth once again may be taken as maybe by chance. Mostly we are now in such a situation where birth is considered, understood as a consequence or a byproduct of sexuality, which is absolutely wrong. You see, when the child is born, most of the people, they believe that the child is born as a byproduct of sexuality of the parents. But that is not true. There is something behind. There is something deeper and something behind, and that is not just a chance. So taking birth has some basis. We cannot claim in any manner. See, if you want to take birth, if you don't want to take birth, it is not under our control. That is sure. So we cannot claim anything. So our taking birth, our getting into a body, our taking birth has, it is controlled by some other element which is beyond our control, beyond our perception. So what is the basis? So bhava pratyaya. So bhava pratyaya means basis for birth. So here in this aphorism, he has given, there are two types of beings. One group are called Videhas, those who have no bodies, and other group are called Prakritilayas. Both these are the persons who have an intention to practice, get into practice of yoga, but about Vairagya, we are now considering about Vairagya, non-attachment. So in this aspect of Vairagya or non-attachment, there we have these two categories. This depends upon the practice or sadhana, abhyasa or sadhana. This depends upon that, these two categories. So, Videha, but this should not be misunderstood to those who are working on the higher planes for the benefit of humanity, for the benefit of all the creation. They are higher. They don't have bodies, but they can have bodies whenever they need. That is different. But you should not get confused between this. Here we are considering about those who are practicing, who are trying to practice. yoga and thus practice vairagya. So in this, there are two categories of the practitioners. So one category are videhas, those who do not have bodies. That is one category. Another category is prakriti layas. So, to those who merge in nature, these are prakriti layas. So in both the categories of the persons, they practice abhyasa, they try to apply abhyasa and vairagya. They keep practicing for the whole life. But even after the practice for many years and for many births, through many births also, this is a process which continues through many births. It is not just completed in one birth, unless they make an intense effort which will be explained later. But mostly it is true that all the human beings in one or the other birth, they are forced means, they are directed to step into the practice of yoga. That is inevitable. But so this is a process for many births. It is not that in just one birth they made. In some cases it appears that in one birth they reached the goal. That means their practice has culminated in that birth. They had been continuing this practice through many births before, and in this birth it reached the culmination. So they could attain the goal. So we have to remember that this process continues for many years, decades, or many births. Especially these two types of sadhakas. Sadhakas means practitioners. For them, if they are in these two types of categories, for these practitioners, even though they continue to practice their effort for many years and for many births, they have invariably a reincarnation. That means they will have a trust. So, those who have no bodies and those who get merged in nature, this forms its own basis for rebirth. That is the aphorism which is given. So what happens is, every time when they get reincarnated, they get a new birth with ignorance only. That means for the body there is a rebirth which is always fixed by the forces of nature. You cannot avoid this. Because once the body is gone, invariably he has to get into another body. That is unavoidable. But here, reincarnation, when you speak of reincarnation, we have to remember specifically, is it reincarnation of the body only, or also reincarnation of the individual who is getting the body? This is a bit new for us in the beginning, because we live identified with our body. That's why this is new for us in the beginning. But we have to realize that our body is an instrument for us, but who is the one, real one, is the inner self, whom you call the soul. So this reincarnation is not only for the body in these two categories of persons, it is also for the person. So he gets reincarnated along with the body. This we have to understand very, very clearly. Once we cross this, then what happens is there will be reincarnation of the body but not the person. How is it? For the person, he has no birth and death. He is always beyond that. But he gets into the body. That is a different phase, different state. That means he will take the body not with any obligation. That is the ultimate goal of us. Yogic state. For a yogi, also he takes reincarnation. He takes a body, but he is not born. He takes a body. He doesn't die, but he leaves the body. This makes a difference. This we have to, in due course of time, we get more familiar with this process. Because we are not familiar in the beginning. That is why it appears confusing, but there is no confusion at all. We leave the body, but we have no death. We take another body, but we have no birth. This we will realize in due course. When we get into this realization, then we have no suffering, no grief about anything. So here these two categories of people, for them, this is inevitable. But when they get transformed into real yogic state, even these people, Videhas or Prakrithilayas, when once after the transformation, after certain period, maybe some births, then when they are completely transformed into yogic state, then there is only birth for his body, but not for himself. That is the difference. So that is what is called the real liberated state. Liberation is from the obligation to take birth. So they are not obliged, but still they take bodies. That is the difference. So this we have to realize. We have to more and more realize. We will go. But now let us more clearly understand about these two categories of people with more examples. That is what we have to do now in the study of this aphorism. So our getting into a body is not by our choice. This we have to remember until we completely get stabilized in the yogic state. So then, really those people who got the completely yogic state, they will never claim anything. They will not say, I don't want to reincarnate, or they will not say, no, I want to a body. So they don't take any decision for themselves. So there is no death. There will be death for the body, there will be birth for the body, but for the person, there is no death or birth. That is a state that we get by getting stabilized in the yogic state, a totally yogic state. So that is what is said in this aphorism, is that for these two types of people, those who are doing their practice into these two categories, they will invariably get a birth, another birth. Not only his body, but he also get incarnated. That is to continue. What is the purpose? To continue the practice to reach the goal. So that is very evident from the very beginning. When a child is born, when you observe the inclinations of the child, then you can know. Because that is, sometimes we get a question, already it was questioned by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. When we start practicing, when we step into yoga practice, in this real sense, in Abhyasa and Vairagya, suppose we came to this path at a later stage of our life. Suppose we crossed 60 years of age, then somehow we came across this, and we should enter into, we have to step into yoga practice, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Then what happens if the practitioner dies in the middle? Because everything is taken away. When we leave the body, no memories and all these things. Then once again, when he reincarnated, when he takes a new body, is it that he has to start from the beginning once again? No. That is very clearly explained by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita. Everything is lost by leaving the body. All that which is connected to the body, they are lost. But his yogic practice is not connected to the body. He started the practice using the body because it is an instrument, but it is connected to his inner consciousness. So it is never lost. That is what the Lord said. When he takes a new birth, it continues from that point where it stopped by leaving the body in previous incarnation. It starts from that point for further steps, forward steps. So that is very clear. So therefore, now what is meant by Videha? Those who have no bodies. That means even when they are still in the body, even then also, those who started to meditate upon a substance, some substance or something different from his body, meditating using his mind, where the mind is merged. When the mind is with the mind he started to meditate upon. For example, one fellow has a liking for Rama, another fellow has liking for Christ, another fellow has liking for some other thing, some other name of God or form. So then he started to meditate upon that form of God and getting emotionally and also in all levels more and more intensely concentrated on that form. And some other person may be a devotee of Hanuman, maybe. So anyone. So then what happens? He makes so intense practice that he may get a vision of that form of God for which he is devoted for all the years, more and more intensely. He may get the vision. He may see his God in the form of Krishna, in the form of Rama, or in the form of Jehovah, or in the form of Allah, whatever it may be. Because this yoga is, it is not at all limited to any religion. It is above the religion aspect of religion. So it is for any person of any religion. It doesn't matter. But for example, we have to take. So, suppose he is a devotee of Rama. So one day he feels, I got a vision of Rama, wonderful vision. I have seen Rama before me. Okay. So he says, he describes the form of Rama which he got a vision in such a wonderful manner. So, in his practice of yoga, he could meditate and see and got the vision. So he got the vision, he got in the dream also, in his vision also, he got his God whom he likes in that form. So then the question is that he got the vision of Rama, for example. Is it Rama really what he got in his vision or not? Because he has been practicing meditation, he has been meditating intensely, and he got that vision of Rama, who exactly in the manner in which it is described in Ramayana and all this. And many of the rishis and devotees who have described how Rama will be, and so exactly in that same form he got his vision. Physically also he could see him. So now the question is, this vision is it really the Rama or not? In this example, it may be, you take the example of Rama or Krishna or Jesus or in any form. Is it really that Rama or not? The answer is, that is what he is going to explain. The answer is, this vision which he got of his God whom he had been meditating is the image framed by his mind. Is it so disappointing? No disappointment. It's not question of disappointment, but it is a fact. After meditating, after practicing for some decades, and after got a vision, if you say it is only an image made of your mind, then how can you feel, disaster, disappointed? No disappointment. It is good. Okay, you got a wonderful. Instead of getting any disastrous or other type of visions, you got a good vision. That is okay. To that extent, it is very good. Instead of getting a vision of a demon, you got the vision of Rama or Krishna or Jesus or Jehovah. This is a good thing. That is of course. But yet, it is a fact that it is an image formed by your mind. How can we understand this? How can we accept this? Okay, let us take a living example. You take from your own life. Suppose I say, she is my lady, she is my wife. And we have many times we have discussed about this example. Later also, once again, we will discuss. Even in this example also, since when she is your wife, after you have chosen each other and you have agreed each other, you will be husband and wife, partners, whatever it may be. So you may call, she is my wife, and she may call you, he is her husband, okay. But even then, what you call wife, is it only what is framed by your mind, or is there something as wife in her? Just analyze. Can you show anything else in her which can show you that she is a wife? She is not born as a wife. You are not born as a husband. I think you will agree. Nobody is born as wife. Nobody is born as husband. Sure. But then, after some time, it happened that you became husband and wife, okay. But what you call husband, what you call wife, is it only what is framed in your mind, or is it true that in that person, in any manner you make any investigation in that person, you cannot find something like wife or something like husband. We have to accept this. So it is the same manner. Whatever vision you get through your meditation, that is the impression of God, impression of Rama, impression of Krishna, impression of Jesus, impression of Jehovah, impression of Allah, whatever it may be, it is the impression framed by your mind which you call the vision of your God. It is difficult to accept in the beginning, but it is a fact. It is not denied. Okay, you had the vision, that's true. You can speak to your God. I may get the vision of my master. Okay, right, very good. I can speak to my master. Okay, speak. But sometimes I say, now master is speaking through me. Then he can. Is it not possible? It is possible. He can speak through any person, not only through me. But he can speak also. There is no need also of speaking through any person also. He can speak directly. If he wants to speak to you, master, he can speak directly to you. Because speaking is not just needed only on the physical speech, which is only just on the ultimate plane. But in the higher plane, he can speak directly. You know, Master Pythagoras, most of you know this, Pythagoras, Master Pythagoras. In French people they say Pythagore, whatever it may be, Pythagoras. Says he had been conducting schools for his students till now, even now. Where are the schools? What is the address? Where is the address? Don't worry. Not on the physical plane. You know what Master Jwalkul said? Now there are no ashrams on the physical plane anymore, in real sense, of the masters or rishis. They are there. They take their disciples. They train them. But how? In these Pythagorean schools, how Master Pythagoras is, how he takes the disciple, how he trains. When we are in sleep, then it is the best time for the master to work. Because our senses and mind are under sleep. Then, if they want, if they can see something light in us, so they can select. It is not from our selection. We cannot select. I cannot say, I have selected Pythagoras as my master. That's ridiculous. A disciple cannot select his master. Never. We may emotionally feel that such and such master is my master. But masters are beyond emotional level. Unless we are completely free from emotion, we are elevated from emotion, then only they may take us as the disciples and they may start training, because they cannot waste their time by all our emotional disturbances. So they will never allow us like that. So Pythagorean schools are even now, they are there. Their disciples are getting trained when they are sleeping from the physical point of view. Then they are taken, then they are trained. That is why that wisdom which is imparted to them, suddenly they feel, when on the physical plane, when they are working, suddenly they feel that some good idea has flashed into their mind. From where it has flashed? It is from the training given by the master. Where? In the higher plane. So this process is always there, but not from our observation. There is so much of glamour is there about all this, that people feel that master is speaking through me, or that all this wisdom is transmitted through me. Okay, it's good, but here what we have to remember is all this vision. So, Master has given a wonderful example in explaining this. Always he has given this example. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi in Tiruvannamalai. Once a lady came to him to visit him and said, Bhagavan, I had the wonderful vision of Kumara. Kumara means Kartikeya, the son of Lord Shiva. Okay, very good. He smiled and said, okay, very good, how is he? And she started to explain. He's a very wonderful, glorious boy who appeared before me. And what is he doing? He asked. She said, he had a trishul or trident in his hand and wonderful ornaments. Oh, wonderful. So what is the color of this? And she explained, his body is shining in golden color. And she described all these things. Like this, I had the vision of this Kartikeya. Very good. At the end, he said, what do you say? She asked him, and finally, she said, yes, he is the image, he is the son of your mind, but not really Kumara or Kartikeya. Real Kartikeya or Kumara, he doesn't need to be like that, decorated as you want him to be decorated. It is all your mind, image of your mind. It is a son of your mind whom you are explaining. Then she said, is it? Then he said, don't get disappointed. It is good you have good vision. Instead of having a vision of some demon or nonsensical visions, you got a good vision. That is okay. But don't be fixed that it is really that same Kartikeya who came to you. So these are these people. These are this category of people, these Videhas, those who are practicing Vairagya, but in this practice they get all these visions and all these things according to the wish of their mind. This is what is called wishful thinking. Our mind makes a trick with us. Wishful thinking it is called. Kama. Kama means wish. We wish to have a image. So wishful thinking, So therefore, then what happens is that if we really, these Videhas means who are having all these not connected to their body. Whether they are in the body, they are having a body, but again they will have a body because their practice is not completed. Therefore, once again they need a body. It is a fact that when once we leave the body, we have to wait until we get a new body for have a progress in our practice. We cannot make any progress in our yoga practice during the period where we have no body and where we are waiting for getting another body. During this period, no progress. Progress starts once again once the moment we get into a new body. This is a fact. There are many people who fancy that after leaving the body we got these higher planes, we got very wonderful planes. All this is only imagination. because it is a science, higher science, given by masters. They cannot give, masters will never give anything, something like emotional things and all these things. They will give exactly according to the Shastra or science. The purpose of our having a physical body is, it is an instrument for us for the practice. Without the instrument, how can you make further practice? Suppose I want to practice music on an instrument. I want to be a musician. Then I have to practice this music on the instrument on which I want to be a musician. But without instrument, when I don't have the instrument with me, where you will practice? Can you practice in the air? You should have the instrument to practice. You will get perfection in the practice only when you keep practicing when you have the instrument. So, in the same manner, our practice continues, our practice of yoga continues to get perfection only during the period when we have a body. But when once we got perfection, we got stabilized as a yogi, where there is no more need to be only a practitioner, then we are not practitioner, you are transformed into a yogi by living in yoga. Then getting a body is not an obligation anymore, but yet you will get into a body. That is also true, but in a different purpose. So this is, but for the Videhas, for these people, they get all these visions and all these things because they are meditating, they are trying to practice vairagya and meditating and all these things. But what happens is, they are in that level of consciousness still, where they are influenced, their mind is influenced completely by all the emotions. That is the problem. That is what happens. That is what happens for the Videhas and these Prakrutaliyas. So Videhas are these people. So then what happens is, their desires and their hatred and desire and all these things, emotions, they are named as gods. They name their emotions, their desires and hatreds, emotions and all these things as their God. That is the problem. So for that whole life, they are completely entangled in that, and then they leave the body, and again they get another body to continue this. So it may take some births. So when they leave the body, what happens is, only these emotions, these impressions, they will be there. They will leave the body with this, and they take another body to continue with this. So they have to practice still very long. They have to make a still long journey, long way to reach. That is the thing. So, then which is the right path then? Which is the right path? When all the emotions are washed away, when you get free from emotions, when we get completely sublimated from the emotional level, then it is the right path. So therefore, unless we are completely free from emotion, It is not, we be sure we are not still on the right path. That we have to remember. Then what about the second category, the Prakriti Layas? So Prakriti Layas, to those who merge in the nature, what about this second category of people? They are also, for example, they meditate upon the nature, meditate upon the fire, meditate upon the light, or meditate upon the ocean, or meditate upon the sunrise. So, all these meditations. This is good for a certain extent. We have to. Suppose your mind is disturbing you, it is recommended that you meditate upon the rising sun. Every morning you stand facing the rising sun and meditate upon the rising sun as if the sun is rising. Also not only outside but in your inside you also the sun is rising. Then it gives a very good help for you to for further practice, further step. It is good for that. So, but what happens is, in these people, all these type of meditations of nature, they go into mountains, they see the high mountains, and they get absorbed into that, meditate upon that, absorbed into that. That is very good. It is recommendable. But you should not stop there. But these people, what happens is, suddenly they get stabilized and they get samadhi only on that. And what happens? This will block further progress. They will stop there. That is, so they get stabilized. That is the thing, they get stabilized. But this samadhi is not exactly the samadhi which is being explained by Patanjali here in the yoga. This is not the absolute samadhi which is explained by this yoga by Patanjali and also in Bhagavad Gita and also any of the yogic masters. So here, what happened is, his mind got stabilized but stuck up at certain stage from which he could not come out. That is what is happening with these Prakriti Layas, who are merged in nature. So what he calls God is only his impression of God. So God is beyond impression. Unless you have crossed the impression, you cannot get a real experience of God. So, there is a source of error in this. He calls his impression of God as God. God is absolute. So you cannot say his God and my God. If you say my God is greater than his God, that means all this is impression. This is what we always, the God of our religion is greater than the God of another religion. That means it is only on the lower level. It is what you call God is only impression of God, but not really God. Because God is only, if your God is singular, only one. You know, there is a sentence in Bible. I am the Lord God. I don't admit any plurality. What does it mean? Even the God is also jealous about another God. This is wrongly translated. I am the jealous God. So, you have, we the human beings, we have passed this jealousy to God also even. How can God be jealous? We call gods, but there is one God, the God. Gods and the God. So the God is only one. So God of my religion and God of his religion, it is not like that. So we have to go above this, cross this limitation. Unless we do that, we cannot make a progress. So there is an error. So, what is meant by Prakriti? Prakriti means nature. So which nature about which nature it is explained in this Prakriti Layas? What is this nature? Nature, is it the absolute nature? Here we have to know which nature it is. See. Here we have to what Master has given in his about this aphorism is that meaning to this aphorism. To those who have no bodies and to those who get merged in nature, this forms its own basis for rebirth. So Videhas are those who exist in us without bodies. They do not belong to the kingdom of biological existence. They do not belong to the kingdom of nuclear existence. It is about Videhas. They belong to the kingdom of impersonal existence. So impersonal existence. They exist in nature, whether they exist in our bodies or outside. So they are classified as Devas, belonging to Deva kingdom of existence. So the lords of perception, learning, thinking, imagination, recollection and habit forming are all forces of nature. They belong to Deva nature. So this Prakriti Layas are not of the Deva nature. Since the yogi suspends his own behavior, all the Videha existence are left to nature. They lose a grip of the nature of the individual. They recede into the wider human nature. So we have the lower human nature, which is limited, and we have wider human nature, Then into the nature of all the living beings, nature of one individual and common nature of all the living beings, all the human beings and all the living beings, more and more expansion. Then into the nature of this planet Earth. You see, when we speak of nature, we have to understand all the different dimensions. Then into the nature of the solar system, and then into the background nature, which has its own qualities. By virtue of it, they are again brought into the existence of individual bodies to serve. It is only to serve the duty of training the individual consciousness. When the individual becomes a perfect yogi, he no more needs their training. So this is the ultimate goal of it. Hence they do not bind him in a body. Yet they serve their purpose to other individuals by taking a body. So the yogi lives one with them, since he too does not require an individual body. He does not require an individual body. Only when it is required he may have. But here, these people who are called Prakritlayas, that means those who are merged in the nature, means in their own nature. Suppose, for example, because in this person, no, it is individual nature, means individual nature is always painted or tainted by the trigunas, three qualities, sattva, rajas and tamas. So when, suppose a person is devoted to a particular god, for example, this is example for this Prakritlayas, no? Suppose then he wants to meditate upon his god. So his god may be in the made of gold, or made of silver, or made of copper, made of a stone, whatever it may be. But these Prakritlayas, they are so much identified with only that particular form of God that they cannot accept any other form as God except that form. So they are stuck up. That is why the Prakritlayas also, they need to have another incarnation, not only to the body but themselves also. Because they have to still undergo training until they get out of this limitation. This is the limitation. Suppose he is going to a temple. If somebody has another temple of the same God, they say no, even if the same God, but this God of this temple is only the God, then he is stuck up. This is Prakritlayas. I know some friends, they belong to one church. I have seen. When I asked here, do you go to another church? No. This church only is the real church. So it may be church or a temple or mosque. You see. So this is all Prakritlayas. You can have a temple, you can have an image, but you are stuck up, then it is a limitation. So therefore, they need another incarnation, another body, until they complete their transformation. That is what is explained in this aphorism. Prakritlayas. So what happens is, you say, I get completely in my meditation, I get my samadhi only with this image. If this image is not there, then you have no samadhi. That means it is not samadhi. I cannot meditate. Suppose if for example, I have a habit that I have the photograph of Master E.K. and CVB with me. So 6 o'clock prayer, I just put this photograph and meditate. Suppose I have gone somewhere where there is no photograph of Master Ike and CVB. Then I say I cannot meditate. If you cannot meditate, then what is the use of? If you have the photograph of a knot, there or not, if I cannot meditate at 6 o'clock anywhere, wherever I am on this planet, sit down at 6 o'clock and start meditate, Master CVB, Master Ike. Even without a photograph also, for some time you need a photograph until you got stabilized. But after some time, if you don't have the photograph also, then if you can meditate, then you made a progress. Then if I say, now because I got a stage, higher stage, I don't need any more these photographs, then once again you are stuck up. You see, this, you should not be rigid and stuck up at any point. If I cannot meditate because there is no photograph of Master with me, then still I have to, for many decades, I have to still continue my practice. And if I say now I have come to a stage where I don't need any more these photographs and all these things, I can just close my eyes and Master is before me. Okay, it is good. That is well and good, but you cannot discard. If the photographs are there, you need not throw them away. Why should you throw away the photograph? The photograph is not Master. But you call the photograph as Master. So, where your mind is focused, that's important. So, in photograph was useful for you in the beginning for this focus. But after some time, when it is totally focused always, then it is immaterial whether you have a photograph with you or not. But if you have a photograph with you, then what is the objection if you have a photograph before you, even after that attaining that stage? If you are not emotional, you will have the photograph before you if it is there. You will continue to meditate even when there is no photograph with you. That is immaterial. But these Prakrutilayas are so rigid that if I don't have this, how can I meditate? That means you are Prakrutilaya. Suppose I have a golden statue of Master with me, for example. I have ordered for a golden statue of Master with me. Because gold is much superior. What is that? Gold is much superior to what? I have a golden statue which is most superior. It is not question of superior and inferior. You can have a statue, okay, very good. So if I go somewhere else where this golden statue is not carried, I say, now because golden statue of Master is not there, how can I meditate? Then I am Prakrutilaya. So for Prakrutilayas, for them Prakriti means these Panchabhutas, 5 states of matter. 5 elements, 5 states of matter, all this Prakriti. That is why in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said, you should have no difference between gold, between a stone. So it may be anything. Your mind should not get stuck up in any of these things. Then only you are really a practitioner. You are going to be yogi in a real sense when you are not stuck up with any of these things. All these things are there for you to make use of them for your progress. But if you get stuck up with any of these, then your progress is blocked. That is what is explained in this aphorism. You should not get blocked. You should make use of them. You need them for starting your practice. They are very useful. That is why they are given. You need them. But you should not get stuck up emotionally with them. That is what is meant in this aphorism. If you are stuck up like this, then it forms a basis for you for your another incarnation. Once again, there is a need for you to get the body. Anyway, you will get, but yourself also getting incarnated, reincarnated along with the body. The necessity for this is it is necessitated because you are stuck up. Your progress is blocked by such things. Suppose you are meditating the Lord in the form of a river, flowing river. Very good. Meditate. If that helps you to stabilize your mind, that is wonderful. You can do that. So, but there you should not stop. That is what is meant. You should go up to the level of the indweller, the Lord. This is the secret. It may be in the form of river, it may be in the form of ocean, it may be in the form of any of the forms, a tree or anything. But it should not get stuck up or blocked at that form. It should go to the indweller, the Lord consciousness. The indweller, the Lord. The indweller is in you as the observer. And the same indweller is there in the other person also, in any other form also. So it may be a stone, it may be any stand, any sand or stone or something else, or clay, or any metal, whatever it may be. But you should go to the inner core to reach the Lord consciousness. That is most important. So these Prakritilayas, they are stuck up at any of these points. They are not making a progress to reach the inner core. You see. So that is what is explained in this aphorism. So it may be an idol. It may be an idol of any Lord, or it may be a cross. It is also an idol. Or it may be a book, a sacred book. It is also an idol. It may be a temple. It is also an idol. It may be a mosque. It is an idol. It may be a church. That is an idol. Any of these things. No worry. But you have to get to the inner core, the Lord consciousness. You should not stop in the middle and get stuck up anywhere. And that is what. So far, it is explained so far by Patanjali about the Vairagya or non-attachment. So two types of Vairagyas are explained. One is the Vairagya which is the common Vairagya, which is para, or the real, or the highest. So, Abhyasa and Vairagya are, these two are very important for us to practice for the suspension of the behavior of mind. So what is our goal is the suspension of the behavior of the mind. We have to attain that suspension of the behavior. So for that we have to keep our practice. So in the practice of Vairagya, he has explained us about these two types of Vairagyas, which we come across in the practice. Because in this Vairagya, so Vairagya is non-attachment. In the practice of non-attachment also, sometimes we find we try to give up our attachment to something when by giving up this attachment we get a higher benefit than we give up this attachment to this. This is also we call Vairagya, but we must be careful. You see, for example, Master has given an example that someone is doing a business for lending money lender. So he lends some money to collect some interest on the amount given to the other person. So he has fixed a rate of interest for the people to whom he lends money. As a banker, he is a banker, private banker, money lender. So one day he got a customer. He came to know that he is a very important person. You can have much more advantages from this person. So then he said, "Oh sir, for you I don't charge any interest. You can take." What? That means he got Vairagya now. So till now he had been collecting interest on the money he is lending, because he is very much attached to the rate of interest, how much interest I get in the business. Okay. But now he said, "Oh, it is not important for me about the interest. You need not pay any interest. You can take this money as a loan." Why you are telling this? You are informed that this person is having so much of possibilities for you to explore from him in future. So therefore, now he got Vairagya or non-attachment towards the interest which he is charging. So is it non-attachment? So this is suppose what happens for this person is he has not charged any interest to this person because he will be useful for him after some time. So after some time he has paid back the money and he has not charged any interest. And then he asked that person, "Can I have further contact with you because I need some more help from you?" That person said, "No, thank you for your kindness. You have not charged any interest, but I cannot promise you anything from my..." Then this person got disappointed. Oh, I expected that by not charging interest, by giving loan free of interest to him, I could get more benefit. But now he told me abruptly that he is not going to make any benefit to me. Oh, unnecessarily I have lost so much of amount of interest. So what is the result of his Vairagya now? Disappointment. If it is true Vairagya or non-attachment, there is no question of disappointment. But this is false Vairagya. So, therefore, we have to realize what is really Vairagya. So what is the benefit of practicing Vairagya is that it is not that we get material benefit or something else, but our betterment in our attitude, in our an advancement, a betterment, a forward step in our practice, in our experience. It's not something on a material plane. So therefore, if you want to have any benefit or advantage by practicing yoga, then you will have a disappointment. You have to practice. Practice of yoga is not for the so-called benefit. What do you call benefit? Profit, benefit, all these things. It is only for to be fit, not for profit. What is the profit you get by practice of yoga is you will get more fit, more and fit, but not that benefit what you call benefit. Real fitness, that is called, that is the reason, that is the purpose. So the purpose, so therefore we should not stuck up for the so-called benefits on this path. You know what Jesus Christ said is, blessed are those who believed. Blessed are those who believed. That is the sentence given by Jesus Christ. That means, if one wants to believe, if he is shown some proof, if you want to have a proof to, suppose Patanjali says, if you use Abhyasa and Vairagya, then you will make a forward step to reach yoga. Then what is the proof? If you ask, that is why he said, those who can accept without a proof will have a real progress. That is the meaning of the sentence. If you want to come with me, me means the Lord. If you want to follow me, if you want to come with me, if you ask for a proof, then you cannot. That is what the Lord says. Therefore, if somebody wants to believe by a proof, even somebody on the street also can believe. Why? So therefore, a magician on the street can show so many proofs by making a magic. But he cannot show you the real ultimate path for us. Therefore, in the practice of yoga, what is the use by practice of yoga is the real purpose. So the purpose, every morning meditation, there is a sentence, the purpose which the masters know and serve. This is the purpose. The purpose which the masters know and serve. So it is for that purpose that we have to enter the practice of yoga in its true sense. So this is very important. So we will continue this in our next week class, because the subject is Very important. We cannot skip off fastly to another further aphorisms. What is the use if we jump into further aphorism without a complete experience and explanation of what is given in the aphorism and apply it to ourselves? Without application, there is no use. So thank you all once again. Vasudeva.